Highgate Cemetery has always been a place of intrigue for Russians. The tomb of Karl Marx stands sentinel over those of other socialist dignitaries. And this is also the resting place of former KGB officer Alexander Litvinenko, believed to have been poisoned by Russian spies. A reminder, as if one were needed this week, that Cold War espionage is alive and well. There's an old KGB handbook which details the tricks Russian intelligence got up to in the bad old days of the Cold War. The gossip is these techniques are still very much in use. Lesson 1, when targeting the enemy, don't use a Russian if you can find someone from a third country who will do your dirty work for you. This is the strange tale of the connections between free men, the first Maltese, the second Russian, the third German. We begin with the links between the Russian state and the election campaign of a certain American reality TV star. During the American election, Trump advisors were offered emails from inside Hillary Clinton's campaign, emails hacked by Russian spies. The FBI has launched a major investigation. This is Trump advisor George Papadopoulos. He pleaded guilty to making false statements about contacts he'd had with the Russian government. And Papadopoulos admitted to the FBI that a mystery Maltese professor was the go-between between him and the Russians.
The Russians will use third country nationals as really mostly access agents, to use the proper term, meaning they're out there spotting and assessing for targets for Russian intelligence. Particularly people who might not want to talk to a Russian, will be put off by talking to a Russian for security or personal reasons. Someone who's a third country national can be a lot better person to be the face of Russian intelligence.
Papadopoulos admitted to the FBI the professor told him that the Russians possessed dirt on Hillary Clinton in the form of thousands of emails, that he wanted to introduce Papadopoulos to a contact, and that his contacts were in the Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The Maltese professor was this man, Joseph Mifsud. He was known as a diplomat, but Professor Mifsud's career began as an academic here in Valletta at the University of Malta. He resigned in 2007 under something of a cloud. He then moved through a series of academic institutions, touting his expertise in diplomacy, presenting as an ambassador. But this is not true.
They would be mistreated.
Maltese journalist Jürgen Balzan has checked out the facts.
There's absolutely no evidence of Mifsud being an ambassador or deployed in some Maltese foreign ministry office abroad.
The man who never was an ambassador moved to the London Academy of Diplomacy in 2013, an obscure outfit whose degrees were awarded by the University of East Anglia and the University of Stirling. Here he is with the Russian ambassador, a real one, that is. So why would a minor academic working in British universities be of interest to the Russians?
He is a very typical kind of character in this world, on the fringes of academia, think tankery, and governments. He looks non-threatening. He's a hanger-on. He's at all the parties. He's a wannabe, not a real player. In a strange way, that can actually help the Russians because, again, the threat perception drops considerably. He's Maltese, which is not associated a lot with, threats of any kind, frankly. He can get along in a lot of places.
Mifsud had a fiancée based in Ukraine, according to BuzzFeed. The woman says she hasn't seen or heard of the professor for months, but she's left holding the baby. Weeks ago, she gave birth to their daughter. He got about a bit for business, too. We've tracked some of the movements of our humble professor. In London, he met Boris Johnson and Junior Minister Tobias Ellwood. At a university in Rome, he worked with two former Italian foreign ministers. In Riyadh, he was at a think tank run by former head of Saudi intelligence, Prince Turki Al Faisal. A source said he'd regularly visited Moscow. None of this, of course, is evidence of him being a Russian asset. But there's no denying the benefits of networking. Here's another nugget from that old KGB handbook. International conferences and seminars are great for recruiting. Stuffed with clever academics, scientists and business people, they're the perfect place to, quote, get information and influence foreigners. In 2016, the professor was in Moscow for a Kremlin-backed Valdai conference. To his left is Ivan Timofeyev, who works at a think tank linked to the Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
Democracy is such a political regime which is most vulnerable in comparison with each and every other kind of political regime.
The Washington Post says it's aware of emails suggesting Mifsud put the Trump team in contact with Timofeyev. Also at the Valdai conference, we meet German-born, Swiss-based multimillionaire Dr. Stefan Rowe. Stefan Rowe, on the left, is the third man. He's a lawyer with close links to Professor Mifsud. Stefan and his Russian-born wife Olga have homes in Switzerland, Monaco, London and Hong Kong. And then there's this castle in Scotland, and buying it made Stefan and Olga the Baron and Baroness of Inchtrua. In 2014, Stefan Rowe became a visiting lecturer at the London Academy of Diplomacy. He buys the private university in Rome, where Mifsud is part of the management. And Mifsud becomes a consultant at Rowe's legal firm.
The way we always were in my family, very achievements-oriented.
Here's Olga Rowe on the left in Fox's reality TV show, Meet the Russians. She's extraordinarily well connected, running an upmarket dress company in London's Mayfair. Among her customers, Britain's Prime Minister. Here's Theresa May meeting the Queen in an Olga Rowe coat. Most intriguingly are Stefan's business interests, which appear extensive. Newsnight can reveal the story of one.
In the autumn 2005, I received this phone call from a Dr. Stefan Rowe, showing an interest in the company and explained very briefly that he was involved, or was intended to be involved, with some technology transfer from Russia to Europe. And he would like to do this through my company.
Dr. John Harbottle is a British nuclear scientist who ran a nuclear consultancy, Seven Vale Nuclear Services Limited. He specialised in the effects of radiation on fuel materials in reactors in Britain, France and the United States. So what did Dr. Rowe want from him?
He explained that he would like to acquire my company, but he wanted to retain my services and the technical side because he was a lawyer and had no technical background at all.
Dr. Rowe bought the nuclear consultancy, then invited Dr. Harbottle on an all-expenses-paid trip to a conference in Moscow. But the nuclear scientist was alert to the danger that visitors to Moscow can be targeted or even honey-trapped into compromising situations.
It smelt a rat, you know, that didn't sound as if it was ringing true, and I decided that I wasn't going to go to this meeting.
So Dr. Harbottle declined to go. Shortly afterwards, he was fired. Under Dr. Harbottle, the company's turnover had been £42,000 a year. Within 3 years, Seven Vale Nuclear was turning over more than $43 million a year under Stefan Rowe, with just 2 employees.
On the face of it, it could be a legitimate business, highly successful in a short space of time. However, my concerns are that it's only got 2 employees, neither of which are experts in the field of the consultancy. So it could be money laundering. Up from that, it could be a way of obtaining nuclear capability for the Russian energy sector within Russia that needs improvement.
Dr. Rowe didn't respond to repeated attempts to contact him. The case of Stefan Rowe and Seven Vale Nuclear and of Joseph Mifsud and Team Hillary's emails raises big questions about these types of international characters and their links to the Russian state.
The essential tradecraft used by Russian intelligence today is very similar from that used during the Cold War. Indeed, it's overwhelmingly similar. So you can draw lines from the late KGB to the present day with a lot of ease and accuracy.
Professor Mifsud too didn't respond to Newsnight's attempts to contact him, but has always denied that he's a spy. When approached by Italian newspaper La Repubblica, he said, "Secret agent? I never got a penny from the Russians. My conscience is clean. All I've done is to foster relationships between official and non-official sources."